All right, guys. Welcome to Sam and Cathy. It is the companion podcast to Sam Roberts Show, which you can listen to on SiriusXM Monday through Friday, live 9 to midnight on the East Coast, 6 to 9 on the West. It's one show. There's just a time difference.
Unless it's Memorial Day.
Best of. It'll be a best of. Yeah, if you want me to, I can't start introing the show with the list of holidays, you know what I mean? And I haven't finalized my vacation schedule yet.
Because you don't take vacations?
I don't know if it, by the way, my name is Sam Roberts. This is Cathy Kelley. I'm the last professional broadcaster. And she's Cathy. So,
jerk.
Well, you haven't branded yourself with you haven't given yourself a proper nickname.
No, because I defy everything that society has.
Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah, that's
an anomaly.
That's what happens when people meet you. She just screams defiance.
Yep.
Everybody's told me on that note that you were just saying that, like, these vacation days, if you don't use them, you're giving your money away. And I'm like, I don't even understand. I guess mathematically, because if you don't use the vacation days a company allots you, technically your working days for free, I guess. But I think it's unique to the job too. If I was working,
you like your job.
Yeah, if I was working, but even if I were working a more of a traditional desk job that I liked, I probably wouldn't be putting in free days because that wouldn't matter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There are a lot of jobs where not taking vacation days doesn't actually do any good. Even some of the jobs at Sirius, not taking vacation days doesn't help anything. Like just being there, if you're doing the same thing day in, day out, like unless you're growing somehow on a day-to-day basis, even in the most minuscule ways, not using your vacation time isn't going to help. If I were in one of those positions, I would probably use all my vacation time, but I would use my vacation days productively. It wouldn't just be like, oh, I finally get another week to do nothing. Oh, now I've been working for 10 years, so I can do nothing for 3 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever it is.
You have to organize your action figures.
Exactly. I think, if you're not doing something important, like reorganizing your toy collection, it's a total waste of time. But I've always, I feel like I work the type of schedule and work in such a way that one works when they're not working for a company. Meaning that, like...
You're your own boss.
Yeah, but I'm not. Mm-hmm. I work like it, but I'm not. The guy who runs Sirius would be my boss. Like, you probably don't take a lot of vacation days, but you don't have a guy saying, here, we're giving you this money and here's your vacation days.
Yeah.
Now, do you think if you did somehow... Like, let's say WWE was like, here, you have 3 weeks vacation. Are you using the 3 weeks?
I would probably ask if I could come in and do the radio show.
Right.
And if for some reason you were off, then I was like, I guess I would probably go to LA, visit my friends, but also
do a couple red carpets or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've always at the end of the year eaten vacation days, and it's never been a thing to me where I'm trying to make sure the company notices, because that's not what it's about.
They don't.
They don't. No, I have no idea. But that's also not what it's about.
Yeah.
If you're doing something like that for the approval of a higher up, that's never going to happen.
Yeah.
Like, you have to be doing it because there is some kind of intrinsic value to what you do day to day.
Or you'll start resenting them if you are working for that and they don't notice.
Yeah, it's weird. I hear, not just from people who work with me, but just people in general, especially who work at companies where they do creative things, like they feel that the company is not doing enough for them.
They should be thanked endlessly for doing what they were hired to do.
Right. Like, there's a paycheck. Like, there's money that goes along with it. I just don't... I find it weird that people, and I don't know if it's a generational thing or if it's something that's always been around, but the older people pretend that they didn't. Because I think a lot of that happens. A lot of millennial bashing is people forgetting
that
how
they used to do that.
Awful they were when they were young. Like, it's not like the hippies were this great generation. They were sitting around being voluntarily homeless and dropping acid. I'm not impressed by that. But I think that there has to be you have to be doing it for a reason that provides value. And to people who kind of walk around going, well, this isn't being done for me, I'll never understand that, because I don't know that many people who just get something done for them. And usually when some company or some overarching thing will do something for you, even if you're talking about getting an agent, whatever it is, if there is a body that has abilities or assets, whether it's investing money or investing time or investing promotion into something or someone, it's because that thing or person has done something, if not inside that company, then outside that company. There's an investment to be made because that person has already created something.
That's because we're in the day and age where it's very simple to see what others are doing but not see the work that goes into it. Like, we see the Instagram post of, oh my gosh, I just got a new job, but you don't see the 10 years of work that went into it. Or you see someone got a promotion, but you didn't see all of the things that they did to get that promotion. Right.
Results are so easy to find, and there's also this
people aren't going to be like, yeah, I just had, like, take a selfie of, oh yeah, I just worked 20 hours of the last 24.
Well, here's what happens with that is it's buzzwords. So people will say,
hashtag hard work.
I'm on my grind. I'm on my hustle.
Hashtag rise and grind.
Exactly. But that doesn't actually mean anything.
Yeah.
Right? They're not actually doing anything. I think the word hustle is probably the worst word to have been introduced into the English language for what it's used for now in the last decade. Because now, and people heard it in a hip hop song or whatever, and now people are saying, man, I'm just hustling. And you're not, if you're just doing your job, you're not hustling. You're moving. You're walking.
We've talked about this before. Of the people that complain about working hard, usually aren't working hard. Like, the people that actually are working hard are like, oh no, I should be working harder.
Because who's got time to complain about how hard they're working? But I think that there are people who like to find a reason why things aren't working out for them, and there are people that go, okay, I get that things aren't working out for me. Okay, it's not falling in my lap.
Mm-hmm.
I need to turn my life into making... If you really want this thing to happen, if you want this thing to happen bad enough that you're going to walk around complaining about it not happening, then instead of doing that, it should be up to you...
to prove them wrong.
Yeah, to create it then.
They don't want me to succeed.
Ask DJ Khaled. Ask him yourself. He's made a whole career out of it. That's my goal, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
My goal is to become just successful enough that I can make a living telling other people how to be successful. Because that's becoming a wide open market right now.
Are you doing that now? Not on as grand a scale as...
I mean, if I were just doing this, then maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. But that's also... I feel like now I'm just venting.
Yeah, I feel that way too.
You know what I mean? It's not necessarily...
Giving advice is just... Ugh.
Like, why don't you understand? What? Because these are things that are really happening. And these are things that you're really dealing with. And these are things that you're really watching kind of go on around you. And it's like, there's just so much opportunity to create. Why would you ever... And if it's not going to happen for you, and it's not worth putting in the time or the effort, which is fine, that sometimes is the case, then there's no complaining to do. It's move on to the next thing. Some people live very happy lives, working 9 to 5, not enjoying their job particularly, clocking out at the time they're supposed to clock out, using every minute of their vacation time, and just kind of existing. And if that really makes you happy, then that's fine. But my problem is that more often than not, the people who live that type of lifestyle will tell you that they're doing that because that's what they want to do. But those are the people who you will most often find resentment toward other people.
Yeah.
That will provide the most excuses for why things aren't happening. As opposed to the people who, even if it doesn't work out, even if you bust your ass and it just never happens, it never happens. Because you're dead before it never happens. Like, if you're really busting your ass for it and it never happens, it's because you died before it happened. One of those two things is going to happen. If you don't stop moving, right?
Get busy or die trying.
That's it. That's it. You might not get rich, but you'll be too busy to be upset about it. Like, if you just keep pushing and keep pushing and keep pushing, then you'll be dead before your goal doesn't come to fruition. And then it's not going to bother you at all.
Hashtag goals.
That's it. That's it. Either accomplish your goal or be dead.
Yeah.
That's why it's just there is no sort of it didn't happen unless the decision gets made to not do it anymore. You said at one point in your career or whatever, because before you were in WWE and
yeah, my career or whatever.
Well, I mean, it's so like I just worry very much when we talk about what we do.
I know. It seems fake.
Exactly.
Like, I always say this. Like, I have to take a step back and like pinch myself whenever I say I'm like going to work or something.
Exactly.
It's not work. It's fun. Like, yes,
Right.
It's work, but it's
Right.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah. But you, before you were, I mean, ironically, right before you were working with WWE and me, you were talking about not doing this at all anymore, right?
Crying all the time. I mean, like.
Well, there was a little of that even when you were with me, but.
I mean, I think I had gotten to the point in working that I had done it for so long for free and, working 16-hour days,
Right.
16-hour days. So it was like doing red carpets and whatever. But
Which is funny, though, by the way, because it's like, it really depends on your perspective, because we'll get right back to what you were saying, but it really depends on your perspective, because the reason you were working 16-hour days is because that's what you wanted to do.
Yeah.
There was not things that you wanted to do that you weren't doing. You wanted to work the 16-hour days. Like, as you were doing it, you were like, of course, I'm just going to keep working today.
Yeah. There wasn't, I mean, like, that was the thing is I didn't have a plan B. Like,
Right.
I never had that thought of like, oh, if this doesn't work out, like, what should I do? And it was right before I moved out here that's the first time in my life where I was like, oh, I should have a backup plan.
But what happens is your perspective gets skewed because insecurity starts to seep in.
Yeah.
And then you don't think about today as in, of course, I'm just going to keep working. You think about yesterday and last week, and you start thinking about the fact that you worked all those 16-hour days. And it doesn't occur to you to just say, at no point in those 16-hour days did I want to stop working. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you start calculating, I've done all this work. It should be panning out, which, it is why you were doing it, but it's not why you were doing it.
I mean, I think it's, what we were talking about of what people don't see is, yeah, probably 15 out of those 16 hours in the day, if I could surpass all of that, that would be awesome. But, like, it was all worth it for those moments.
Right. And it's also, like, that's where you learn how to cope.
I appreciate like everything a lot more too.
I appreciate you. Yeah, that's those long days are where you learn how to kind of deal with everything that's going to get thrown at you anyway. It's not like once you start to achieve things that you wanted to achieve in any industry, stuff's not going to get thrown at you anymore. It's like the reason why you should be putting in 16-hour days for 10 years or however long it is because... I
mean, not all 10 years I was putting in 16
But you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
When we start going over the narrative, that's what you... But the reason why you do 16-hour days for 2 years then is...
more than 2 years.
Right. Whatever. Next time I'll come prepared with the Cathy Kelley timeline.
Hashtag hustle.
Right. Is because that prepares you so that when stuff starts getting thrown at you, as you start doing bigger and bigger things, you're equipped for it.
Yeah.
Because stuff kept getting thrown at you when you were doing the smaller things.
And the cliche of, like, you won't succeed if you never fail. I failed a lot.
You have to. That's what we were talking about a little bit last
much.
week. Like, you have to. It's the best. In hindsight, it's the greatest thing ever.
Yeah. I'm also one of those people that's slightly a perfectionist. And so when I think back to some of the things that I've done,
like what?
It's embarrassing.
Like what? What did you do that's embarrassing?
I mean, they're just like, it's stupid things. Like, I remember like questions there was a red carpet that I did for what show was it? I think it was American Horror Story, like season 5 or 6, and they weren't going to use me originally. They were going to use someone else from the company, and then they called me last minute because this person flaked,
Right.
and they knew that I was reliable. So like I ran over there, hadn't prepared at all. Had gotten to the point in my career where I could kind of like fake it a little bit, but someone was walking, I think it was Michael Chiklis was walking the red carpet, and I was asking him questions, and he was like really into the interview. He almost didn't stop because a lot of stars like don't stop on the red carpet, so you have to get their attention in some way. I never wanted to be the pushy person who was like yelling their name.
How long did you do red carpets for?
Probably like 3.5 years.
You enjoy them?
Yeah.
Like
it depends on which ones. Like I got to be to the point like towards the end of it, I could be really picky with the carpets that I did, so I didn't do, someone's like web series show that I didn't care about.
I did like a couple of red carpets when I was working for Opie.
Yeah.
Just to get sound bites or whatever and whatever. And like I hated it.
It's very, very, very difficult to learn. Like, everyone always sees the glamour behind it, but you don't see, there have been times when you're, like, sandwiched in between people.
Yeah.
You have no space. There are so many times where if you don't ask the right question or get the soundbite, you'll never work for that company again. Like, it's very, work for that company, you're getting $5. Like, and when parking is $32, and you also have to dress up and do your own makeup and do your own hair and whatever else, and like that sounds like it's a great gig, but really, and I never questioned not doing it, because I knew that was going to get me towards where I wanted to be.
But what did you ask Michael Chiklis?
I asked him several questions about the fan base and whatever else, and then I asked him what was going to be different. I was like, well, like, since it's an anthology, like, how's your, like, do you enjoy playing different characters each season? And it was the first season that he was on, and he, like, I could tell, like, he was enjoying the interview, and then he just shut down. And so, like, those kind of things of, like,
there's no excuse for it. Like, and that's part of it, right?
I mean, the excuse is that I didn't know I was going to be covering the carpet until 30 minutes prior, but
nobody wants to hear that.
Yeah, and I mean, like, there have been plenty of times when like I interviewed George R.
Are you saying things? Are you saying words right now, or just sound?
No,
DMX.
I forget his name. See, like, this is me, but that's also because it's really late. But
George? Did you say George R?
No, I'm gonna Google it now.
What are you looking for?
I'm just brain farting.
Ew.
But that's what I did in the interview too.
Right. What was it for?
It was on the red carpet for the Emmys. Yeah, George R. Martin. I said it right.
I just heard sounds when you said it.
No.
I just heard George R.
Yeah, George R. Martin. He's the author behind Game of Thrones, the series, but the books that he wrote are called Song of Ice and Fire.
Okay.
So that's the series. And I guess when I phrased the question, so like he was walking the carpet, no one cared about talking to him because it's the Emmys and they all would rather talk to Sofia Vergara or whoever else. I saw him walking. I recognized him. I asked him to come over. He was excited to do an interview. And the way that I phrased the question, I said, how's it like talking about him writing Game of Thrones? And the internet got so mad because he wrote Song of Ice and Fire.
And you think that he wrote the TV show.
Yeah.
And you're like, no, I knew, but I said it wrong.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
And just got torn apart. And like, it kind of like, it made me mad because I was like, well, would you rather have not gotten an interview at all because I was questioning.
And that wasn't even really your mistake. Like, you knew you didn't think he was the TV writer.
Yeah.
You just said the wrong thing.
And also, there are so many things of, like, you have to know, for the Emmys specifically, Emmys and Oscars were always so difficult because there's hundreds of people who are walking the red carpet. You should know everything about all of them.
You have to.
And any red carpet I ever did, I never had a producer telling me what to ask. Like, a lot of the bigger outlets would always have producers doing the work for them.
Right.
And I always had to be my own.
Yeah, isn't that funny? It's like if you have producers, you're like, oh, I just wish I had some creative freedom. Yeah. And then once you get it, you're like, this is really difficult.
Yeah.
I don't think I need all this freedom. But so how did you convince yourself? How close were you to quitting? And were you close enough that there was something else that you would have done?
I was thinking about like what else I could do.
What were you thinking?
I was thinking either go to school to be a makeup artist, try to figure out how to get into graphic design because I know like basic Photoshop skills and stuff. Being a flight attendant because I wanted to travel. There were
That'd be dope. There'd be like because that era, like you as a flight attendant would have been like in the 50s. But like flight attendants don't look like you anymore. You know what I mean? It'd be great. You'd be a terrific flight attendant. But it's really funny. But those are all kind of careers that you would have sat there being like, I should have given it another year.
Yeah.
I think I could. And then you would have seen a friend over here. Or, I knew that person back when. And it would have been really rough. And that's the thing that I think so often people forget is. And I've seen this. I'm so lucky because I've watched people walk away from their dream job, whatever, but something like that. I've watched people walk away from a passion job because their brain got flooded by all the peripheral stuff.
I've had so many people say like. Whether it was my mom, whether it was a boyfriend at the time, or like other family members, when I was working for free, they were like, oh, these people are just taking advantage of you.
Of course, that happens all the time. But I've seen people who they made it and they did the working for free and they go a few years, they take a few steps in. Mm-hmm. But that's when they start getting clouded with how much money am I making? I'm better than this person, but this person's making more. There's more opportunity for me out there, blah, blah, blah. And they start thinking that the place that they're at is unfair, but any other place is fair. Without realizing that most of the places are unfair.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there isn't anybody that is ever going to have your back the way you have your own back.
I mean, I think it doesn't even... It applies to the industry, but it also applies to any other job is like you're going to, if you are working at it long enough, like you're going to see people surpass you that may not be as deserving or, I mean, I say that with like air quotes, deserving because who
in
really
your mind,
deserves any of these things. But like, they may have worked for a shorter amount of time. They may be friends with the boss. They may, all of these different, scenarios that could have gotten them to the point that you wanted to be at faster, but you can't look at their path.
No. Yeah, it has nothing to do. And the best thing that can happen is you just hang in because...
It does get frustrating, though.
It gets super frustrating at the time.
Yeah.
But what happens when you hang in, it's this amazing thing where, number one, you get to see people that left because they were just, bashing it all the time. Whatever you're doing, it's like, no, this sucks. They don't treat you right. Over there is better, blah, blah, blah. And then they go away. And then a year later, they're like, oh, how are things over there? Oh, I miss it.
Yeah.
Oh, like they forget. Because what happens is when you're in a place, you get blinded to all the parts that you like. Mm-hmm. And when you leave a place, you only remember all those places that you get, all those things that you got blinded to.
It's just like exes.
Right. All of a sudden, I'm ready to get back together with this guy because, but we were really in love. Remember that Sunday when we went to the park and it was just perfect? Mm-hmm. Remember when we saw that movie and we were both laughing at all of the exact same parts? Remember when we were on that road trip and we were singing the same song at the same time? And it's like...
You remember the good stuff.
Right. But every one of those instances ended with a colossal fight at the end of the night.
Yep.
And it's like, and then you get back in, or you'll start dating, your dude again, and you pick up right where you left off. And you're like, oh wait, I forgot it was miserable. It's the reverse.
Yeah.
When you are in a job, or you're doing something and you don't think it's working or whatever, it's so easy to see all the stuff that you don't like and all the stuff that could be better. And then to look at other people and realize the grass is greener over there. And then trust me, once you get over there, that's when you remember the dope shit that you were doing before or had the potential to do before.
Yeah.
You know, because you see other people acting on that potential. And that's the worst thing. But the best lesson is watching people make that mistake, because then you can see, okay, wait. Maybe I need to just shift my focus and see what's available to me here. That's what you should always be doing as a person, I think. You need to look not at what's handcuffing you and not pay any, like, I don't care how much money I'm making, whatever. Like, look at what's available to you. What is available to me here? What is helpful to me here? Make a list if you have to. Do something, but, like, just constantly be assessing what is available to me here. And use the assets. Like, am I going to take vacation days? No. But am I going to use every single thing that the company that I work for can provide to me? Absolutely. Everything.
I mean, I think a lot of people also get discouraged because being in the grind, they think that no one else sees it.
While they hustling?
Yeah. I do genuinely believe that every hard worker, there's someone else that notices, whether they say or not.
Yeah, and they'll at least notice the results. You know what I mean? Like, they'll at least, at some point, you'll get people to notice. Like, the work that you're putting in has a result that can't be faked. And the fake ones, it's like building a house. If you build a house in 2 weeks, the owners will realize it pretty quickly. And if you've spent a year building a house for real, or I don't know how long it takes to build a house.
Depends on what house.
Right. But if you really built a foundation and created this house, then 20 years from now, people are going to recognize it because that's what the goal is.
Yeah.
But it's like you find people who leave the company, and the other great thing you can do is just sit there and wait and watch the people who surpass you more quickly than you, because
Usually fall off.
You're going to get to see it. You know what I mean? You're going to get to see it, and you on this steady incline the entire time are going to be higher up than you were. You'll be in a higher position than they will be when they fall. You know what I mean? You don't have to beat them to the top, because way before you get to the top, they're not going to be there. They're going to have fallen off. You're going to beat them on your own.
It's all about the longevity.
Yes. And that's what I've been struggling with. Like, I can't help. Every time I think of everything. I have no micro thoughts. Everything is macro for me. So everything is big picture. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, I'm talking like I will try to figure out breakfast based on what time I think I'm going to eat dinner. Like, it's just the way my brain works. Nothing is now. Everything is like, but what's the big picture of this?
Yeah.
And it's made it so, like, okay, you know, you can make pretty good strategic moves, and you can keep. It helps me to keep pushing forward, because if you're thinking big picture, it helps me keep moving forward. But what happens is I'm dulled to all the day-to-day wins. All the little wins literally mean nothing to me.
Yeah.
Like wins that give me one step up. Like, I experience no emotion for them.
Which is, from an outsider's perspective, they see how fast and far you've come in such a short amount of time. Even if you were to step back and look at it from an outsider's perspective, a year ago, you were doing noon to 2.
I wasn't even doing that yet.
So when did that start? That started...
June.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
So you were doing once a week radio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A year ago. Yeah.
A year ago. And then you moved to noon to 2 every day. Mm-hmm. And then finally, after months of doing that, months?
3 months.
I mean,
yeah.
You moved to
9 to
prime
midnight.
time slot. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, sure, but like, yeah, that's what I mean. I'm so like, we're not at the big picture goal yet. That and you know, like Jess will look at me, my wife, and she'll go like, oh, can you believe we did this? And I'll go, yeah. Like, I have no, like, yes, of course. Like, you know, this is what's supposed to be happening. We should be even further.
I used to get so frustrated with publicists in LA because I was like, I know what I'm capable of achieving. Like, I know my interviews are going to be better than what they're doing. And in my mind, I'm like, I can do a better interview than like Good Morning America because I'm going to ask good questions, not just like, oh, wow, this looks like a great movie. When is it coming out?
Right.
I know when it's coming out. I have Google. I'm going to do a great interview. And like, I would approach these publicists of like big name stars and get a response or whatever, or not get a response at all. Like, don't they see what I can do? I knew where I wanted to be, and I still don't think that I'm there yet. But at the time, I was like, I would get so frustrated because I'm like, oh, I know what I'm capable of. I just don't understand how no one else sees it yet.
Where are you going to? Is there going to be a place for you to be at that you're like, I'm there?
I don't know.
Right.
I honestly don't know.
Yeah.
I'm really happy with where I'm at now, but it's also one of those things where I thought the level of where I'm at now is where I would be 7 years ago.
Well, it's so funny. I mean, especially when you're younger, because you haven't even hit 30 yet. So, like...
I feel really old, though.
Well, because you put in so many hours. Like, you didn't actually enjoy your 20s. You enjoyed your 20s like a weirdo. Like, you enjoyed your 20s like somebody who likes to work.
Like, when I was in college, I went out a lot, and...
Right.
Yeah,
I didn't do any of that.
I enjoyed those years.
Yeah. Well,
but I wish that I had them back, so I was working.
Right. I could have worked those years.
Think of where I would have been if I just not had to have 4 years of college.
But nowhere. I mean, it's not like...
I know, I was 17 when I graduated high school. Like,
it wouldn't have accelerated you.
Freaking lost if I went to Los Angeles and tried to pursue anything.
Oh, can you imagine? 17-year-old Cathy Kelley walks into Los Angeles being like, I just want a job in entertainment. Oh, they would eat you alive.
I tried to convince my mom when I was like 12 to quit her job and move us to Los Angeles.
And she did the right thing.
She said no.
Yeah, I would hate having to deal with child actress Cathy Kelley. I like having to deal with like grizzled veteran Cathy Kelley. That's what I like. But yeah, I mean, I think that macro is the way to go. I think I need a little more micro in terms of realizing what's happening on a day-to-day and like, celebrating the little victories. But I think I always think the big picture is the way to go. And I think like you have to be able to, in pretty much everything you're doing, be like, why am I doing this? Like, that's how you know if something is a waste of time or not, right? Like, because if you're just thinking of like, oh, this is fun today. Okay. But, like, is this something bigger picture? You know what I mean?
I do a lot of things based on fun. But I guess it's a hybrid of stuff, yeah.
Yeah, like, what do you do that's based on fun, though?
I mean, going back to, like, living in LA, red carpets were fun to me.
Yeah, but it's not like you were just...
Sitting home and watching wrestling was fun to me.
But you know that you got to sit there and go, this is what I'm doing for fun. Like, how does this... How do
I make this into... something that works for work.
Right. I need to figure out how to, and it's not even like, well, I wanted to make it work for work. It's like, you have to spend the majority of your life working, of your adult life anyway. Like, it's just the way the world works, and I'm for that. You should spend the majority of your life working. But you go, okay, this is what I find to be fun. So how do I spend the most time doing what I like to do?
Yeah.
That has to be what I work for. That has to be my work. Because that's where the chunk of time is. So now, how do I figure out how to do this enjoyable activity as a job? And that's what you eventually have to figure out. You know, I think so anyway.
Yeah.
But I do think that a balance needs to come across. I think most people I encounter do not have a firm grip on macro of what's going on.
Well, I mean, there are a lot of people that I know in LA and even a couple that I've met in New York who have what I would consider their dream job or a platform to get to their dream job. And then they're complaining about it and they're like, oh yeah, I I don't understand who dictates that we have 5-day work weeks.
Oh,
We should just have
God.
4-day work weeks and have 3-day weekends. Like life would be so much bearable. Like you work at a major like sports brand and you love sports. Like why would you want an extra day off if this is what can potentially get you to that next.
And by the way, that's micro thinking.
Yeah.
When you are thinking on a micro level, everything that you complain about means the world to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
All these complaints because it's what's bothering you today. So if you're not thinking big picture, you're thinking small picture, then of course everything that's bothering you today is the worst thing in the world.
Or
because
your dream job doesn't pay enough or all of these things.
Right. Because you're not
making
thinking
excuses,
10 steps down the road.
Yeah.
Adrian just joined us.
What's up?
Producer extraordinaire. We were just talking about I was saying that I've been this week I'm fully comprehending and struggling a little bit with this idea that I need more micro thinking in my. You know the difference between macro and micro?
Yeah.
Like economics, macroeconomics, microeconomics. Big, small. That's it.
What do you think Adrian is? Micro or macro?
Well, I think Adrian's too young to be. I think Adrian's micro at the moment because he's young and because
There's a mix. Like when I first started here, I was 100% micro.
Because of
and also because he grew up
people that you're surrounded by.
people he's surrounded by, and he grew up playing sports. Like on some level, a person who thinks macro at Adrian's age would have to have been thinking about this type of career he's doing when they're 12, when they're 13, when they're 14. Which, by the way, it's fine if you're not, and then you find it and you go, oh, this is what I like doing. This is where I want to be. Because then you start to develop more of a macro way of thinking. But if this isn't something that you're obsessed with when you're a kid, you just haven't spent the amount of time obsessing over it to really figure out what the big picture even is yet.
Yeah. I mean, as a kid, I always had big dreams, but it was never
It was just
concrete.
It was just general big dreams of like, I just want to do something spectacular.
And sports-wise, I thought on a macro level with
Well, what did you think? Macro
with like
level?
ultimate goals within a sport.
Did you follow
You know what
them?
I mean?
Did you accomplish them?
Somewhat, and then I blew out my shoulder.
That's
and
the
that kinda
problem with
ended it.
sports, man. I mean, sports is such a good analogy for a lot of things in life, I think. Sports is such a good analogy, like we were talking last week, about having the right attitude. Like just sinking 100% into it the way you would sink 100% into the game. But sports is also a good analogy, even if you think macro, like you just said. If you're thinking big picture, what do I want to do with my life? Sports is the best way to think about how to prepare for the inevitable thing that you're not going to have control over.
Yeah.
Because, like, on the field, you have control over your performance until you get injured. At work, you have control over your performance until your boss shuts you down.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's always going to be that thing that's going to stop you from following the path exactly the way you think you should follow it.
Like the stock market plummets and they have to lay off
all of us
50% of the people.
Right, and that's not your fault.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean you've screwed anything up. It just means, okay, I tore my ACL. I got to figure out how do I continue on this, and that's when you become The Rock in Ballers.
Yeah.
He's still working in sports, right? Silk shirts,
I didn't start,
partying on boats.
I didn't start thinking on a macro level till probably too late in my sports career. Like early on,
I guess, but when are you supposed to?
In terms of you should be like my main thing was wrestling. And if you want to excel in New Jersey in wrestling and go on to the college level, it has to be a year-round thing.
What's the macro goal, though, in wrestling? Because
State champion.
And then
college.
And then
Olympics?
I mean, that was never what I was ever aiming for.
Because what's the career in wrestling? Because I
there
don't
was
know
no career in it.
Right. Nobody makes any money.
It's more for I love it, but it also.
So thinking macro is like, oh, who has the best career and longevity as far as
wrestling? Like
no. It would be if you like sports, wrestling is not the way to go as far as like
it's tough though.
I mean, I always knew I wasn't going to be a professional athlete.
There are people that do transition into WWE who have done wrestling
or
before,
UFC,
but
UFC I would imagine because it's tough to say that because
I was going to say if you like sports, like you go into baseball, where there are still like 40-year-old baseball
be
players.
a big fat idiot and make a bunch of money playing baseball.
Yeah.
But I also think that a lot of times you get drawn to a particular sport. I don't think like you can like necessarily turn off the wrestling bug to do something else.
Yeah.
And I think probably UFC has opened a lot of doors for wrestlers. Like the idea of being a great wrestler, and
that's
then
it's a lot of people argue that that's the most important skill to have within UFC.
wrestling.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's the most probably that Brazilian jiu-jitsu, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because
that's how you gain control.
Exactly.
But I wasn't thinking about I hated it when I
Wrestling?
first started, and then I fell in love with it as I got older, probably halfway through my high school career.
So what was the long-term? But I don't understand what the long-term thought process was behind wrestling in terms of actually living, or did you not think that far?
Probably my last 2 years of it was when I was going hard and training year round and not thinking like, all right, let me just get through this week. Like it was year round wrestling, waking up every day doing it. But it's also much more mechanical than like say something like this. Like with what you do, you have to do something different every day, and you always have to be thinking. With wrestling, for me, it was get to school at 5 a.m., run, shadow wrestle, drill on your own.
It's just
lift.
it's a direct skill.
These 5 things every day.
Exactly.
And it's time
Very
based too.
regimented.
But you weren't thinking on a level of big picture with this. You were just thinking of I just want to be a great wrestler. You weren't necessarily thinking why or what do I do with that?
I think it was at once I hated it. I wanted to quit after my freshman year of wrestling. Mm-hmm. But then I got good at it, and I was like, okay, there's something here, you know?
Right.
And then I started thinking, and then I got better and better and better, and I started to get recognition for it. And then my only thing that I thought of was getting a medal at the state tournament.
Right. So it's still that kind of cut. And then
So I guess that's not macro,
right.
but at the time when you're 16, I guess.
It is, yeah. I mean, it's at least something. I don't know if I could consider it macro, but I would consider it full commitment. Like, this is what I do.
Yeah.
For right, like you're not thinking, this is my life. You're thinking this is my life right now.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't, you're not going to sit there and, I mean, who knows? Maybe you become a coach. Maybe you end up going to some weird billionaire's mansion where he just likes to train wrestlers and get shot and die. And then it is your life. Who knows? Who knows what could happen? Did you watch the 30 for 30 on it?
Not yet. No,
it's good. It's real good. It's better than the movie.
That's what I heard.
I mean, Steve Carell was great in that movie. Did you watch Foxcatcher?
No.
Oh, my God.
I need to.
If you want an example of, like, for the outsider perspective of how really strange the world of amateur collegiate wrestling is, that's the best thing for it. I mean,
amateur wrestling's fucked up.
It's weird. It's weird, and especially because there's no end game. Like, there isn't anything,
It becomes, to get good at it, you have to have your brain has to get fucked a little bit.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because it's similar to, like, wrestlers will compete with each other just to see who can be more miserable. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that kind of becomes the thing. Like, I remember cutting weight. Like, that was my thing.
Right.
And if you didn't make weight, like, you were
there are a lot of Irish Catholics that are wrestlers. That's like the stereotypical. That's like the Irish Catholic.
Somewhat. Honestly, it's Italians.
My friend who was Irish Catholic, her little brother wrestled.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of Italians.
Yeah.
And at least in Jersey. And Jersey has some of the best wrestling in the country, but it's a ton of Italians.
Right.
And there's a very weird subculture within amateur wrestling.
Right.
It's just odd shit.
Right. But that's why. So now I think, I think you're still in the process of figuring out what it is that you're doing and going to do.
Yeah. I mean,
which is logical.
Do you have an end goal? Like, do you have where would you see yourself ideally job-wise in 10 years?
I mean, that's still something that I'm trying to figure out. You know what I mean? Like I didn't get into, like, you've always thought, you were saying when you were young, you were always thinking along this path, entertainment, something like that. For me, I was kind of lost and hated what I was doing. And I've told you this story. I was commuting to school in the city and was just miserable. And then I got into podcasts and I listened to one show of O&A, and like that day went home and told my parents, like, this is what I want to do. And then I left school, worked at a comedy club, then figured out a way to get in. And I thought that I was much more prepared than I was. We talked about this last time.
Right.
Because we always think jobs sound easier than
of
they
course, you get it all right. And then you get in there and you're like,
you see
this
the
is
easy
nothing.
parts, but...
And
right. Which, by the way, that's also the huge risk of taking something you love and turning it into your job, because then you figure out what that thing you love actually is.
You don't love it as much.
And you're like, oh, this is terrible.
Yeah.
This is a cesspool. This is awful. But that's why it's so important. That's that's what nobody says. Oh, if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. That's totally not true at all. If you do what you love, you'll still work most days in your life. But
You probably have to work harder.
of course you have to work harder. You have to work a lot more because other people want to do it.
Yeah.
But the trick is that you have to constantly remind yourself of what the good things are. I mean, that's exactly what we were talking about before, of like the things that are bad are going to be right in front of your face. Like it is clear as day to see. You have to constantly be reminding yourself, and the more years you put in, the more difficult it gets to constantly be reminding yourself of why you walked in the door and remembering
Why you wanted it in the first place.
Right. Looking around and remembering, oh, yeah, I like that part of it. Oh, you know what? It was actually cool when I got to interact with that person. Or, oh, I made a difference in that person's life. Or whatever it is, whatever little things they are. Because even if you love your job and it's your dream job, you're getting 15% to 20% of it max.
I think that
is going to be the dream job part. And the rest is just the work that you have to do to have that position.
Yeah. There's so many things of like, I think I did take like red carpets and stuff for granted because looking back, like if when I was 12, 13, 14, 15 years old and someone told me that I would get to work one of those, I would be like in awe.
Right. Right. Exactly. That's why, like, I sit there and, like, I go, I hung out, I'm not going to tell you who it is. I hung out with some pro wrestlers at their house. And I always say that I try to always keep in mind what is 13-year-old Sam Roberts thinking of 32-year-old Sam Roberts. You know what I mean? Like, as long as I can be the man to 13-year-old Sam Roberts, I'm on the right track. So I'm hanging out at these professional wrestlers' houses. Cathy, they're your coworkers. And so it's a big deal.
I know who you're talking about.
And we're just, but we're hanging out as peers, which I like. And I look at the table, and these professional wrestlers have action figures on the table. And one of them, a very good professional wrestler, is sitting there doing moves with the figures. And he looks up to these other two guys, and he goes, you know, sometimes I come up with moves using these toys. And both of them, who have made big impacts in this industry, were like, yeah, we do too.
You told me this.
And I go, like, forget about 13-year-old Sam Roberts. I was thinking about 7-year-old Sam Roberts that was sitting there holding up my Hasbro toys that didn't move at all and looking at them. And I remember looking at my brother and going, do you think the wrestlers sometimes play with the figures so they can come up with new moves?
Your brother just looked at you like you were an idiot.
Exactly.
Yep.
And guess what? Yes is the answer. Well, maybe not.
Throw up your middle finger.
Exactly. Maybe not back then because those were the partying days. But now?
Yeah.
In 2015, 2016? Hell yeah, they do. And like that's one of those moments where I'm like, okay, I can't believe I have the opportunity to prove my 7-year-old self right with like some of the coolest people in wrestling right now. And it's not something that you necessarily you certainly don't vocalize it at the time. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But it's something that you be conscious of where it's like, okay, how much bullshit is this moment worth? And the answer is a lot.
Yeah.
Right? So like you have to let that moment cancel out so much of the other stuff that you're dealing with. And it's got to cancel out future stuff that you have to deal with too. So that when stuff starts getting thrown at you that you have to deal with, and you're like, why am I even doing this? Because I know that they set up moves with their toys. That's why I'm doing all of this. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And it's like those are the moments that you have to just keep so that you can maintain your sanity through everything that you don't want to do. Mm-hmm. And I think that's also how you might keep from, like, I don't miss any of my old jobs that I've had because I'm like, yeah, like there not because there weren't positives or because I didn't enjoy them, but because I traded. Like I
traded up.
I traded in. I mean, I look at it as trading up, but I not to downgrade what I was doing before, but I traded in stuff that I like doing for stuff that I want to do more. Yeah. And I traded in stuff that I like doing for stuff that's going to push me more in a direction that I want to be going in. So, you don't look back and you don't worry about the stuff that's getting thrown at you to stop you. You just put your armor on and you get in the bulldozer and you just push and you push through everything.
That's like that. What you just said about dropping things that you like doing,
right?
So doing something you like more is like one of the things I picked up from you, and that's where I've seen a shift in myself versus
for you. It's like for you, it was what, October when we were out in LA, right? Was that right? October?
Yeah,
something like that. It's like the way I see it for you. If I'm you, Adrian, you were sitting there in October, drinking beers with Maria Menounos and Kevin in their house, in their bar, just hanging out. And it's like that moment, and all your friends are like, you're the coolest dude ever. That moment for you is enough to deal with a lot.
Yeah, I mean, that also scared the shit out of me, too.
It should.
It should be terrifying.
It's so awful, because you're going to say the wrong thing.
Yeah, exactly.
But guess what? You sit there, you don't say anything. You say nothing, and just the fact that you're
from that.
I remember you giving me shit because I wasn't. That was when me and Roxy had our thing going on.
Right, you should have been kicking it to her a little bit.
Yeah, but the only thing, once I got in there, I was terrified more than anything. And then Kevin was like, "Hey, could you taste this beer? Tell me if it's the right temperature." And I was just like,
"Yep."
And then I zoned in on him. Was like, "This is it. It's just me listening to what this guy has to say."
Did you get to bang him?
No.
Well, then you should have been concentrating on Roxy.
I actually agree that he should have been like concentrating on what Kevin had to say, because from like my personal experiences, relationships, they come and they go.
I mean, I wasn't thinking he was going to get a relationship out of the deal.
Yeah, but wouldn't you want your producer to know more about the industry and be more well-versed in that regard?
Well, of course I would.
Yeah.
Have better connections.
Exactly, and Kevin's been huge help.
Right.
I still talk to him.
But, like, there's also something that you figure out later, which is, like, Kevin, I would have been like, Kevin, look at Adrian kicking it to Roxy. And, like, me and him would have gotten such a kick out of watching you kick it to Roxy that we probably would have gotten the same amount of benefit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because he would have been like, yeah, Adrian's cool. Adrian's funny.
Yeah.
You know? But that is, either way, I'm kind of joking around. I don't care what you did in that room, as long as you didn't, like, sit there and being, like, too cool for it, which you didn't. But like,
I mean, I was shitting my pants.
Right, and you should have been. I'm glad that you were.
Honestly, for 2 weeks after that trip, I was riddled with anxiety.
I mean, Cathy used to shit her pants all over the Disney red carpets.
No, it's disgusting.
It's gross,
but it's a nasty habit.
But you obviously picked up on it.
Yeah.
In Maria's bar, like you got nasty doo-doo all over yourself.
Shat your pants.
Oh, he never said that.
I said the opposite of that.
Oh. Yeah,
2 or 3 times a year.
That was made very clear.
Not like full shit, but you shart. It happens. It happens to everybody.
I was so nervous the first time I met Maria. Like, I couldn't talk to her.
I mean,
Do you remember the first time I met Maria?
No.
When I was an intern, you sent me up to take a photo with her, and I just like choked, word vomit, and was just like, my mom thinks you're great.
See, but those are the two cool things of like I was so nervous that I didn't say anything, and like I've had that experience with other people too of like being so in awe of like, okay, like I really look up to this person, and they think that I'm like
standoffish,
right? Yeah, like it can go the other way of like, you don't want to be a leech to that person, but you also don't want to be super standoffish or shy.
It's so interesting.
I've been.
You just have to be so aware of the scenario you're in, and just sit there like a hunter and wait for your social cues. Like you just have to sit there and read the room the entire time. Hit your social cue.
It's easier said than
done.
Then
duck the fuck out. Then hit the next one. Then duck the fuck out.
And usually it's better to just keep your mouth shut.
Listen,
or just not meet that person at all.
That's awful. But
just avoid the entire situation.
That's a terrible thing to say. But that's no, you're right. It's much better to keep your mouth shut than to talk too much.
Exactly.
So if you're struggling to figure out where the social cues are, then you're right. But this is where when you go to parties in high school and college and you don't drink, you just get to watch the whole time and just like
a freaking stalker.
That's right. And just learn social cues. And like when guys
That's what Sam did.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not with you on that one.
The stalker.
And you learn social, and then when like people are trying to have private time, you just keep watching. And like when they kick you out, you watch through the window.
You pick the lock.
Yeah. And before you leave little cameras. And then you watch on your computer. That's the trick. That's what nobody knows. It's the secret. Right, guys? You guys with me?
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh, I can't even imagine that.
No, you're just sitting there like...
Being at a party like, I'm going to watch.
Yeah. Yeah. Sam, do you want... No, thank you.
I'm here to observe.
I'm just observing your natural habitats.
But that's like one of those things, like back to what you were saying before about getting rid of little things you like in pursuit of something more that you like. Like, the hardest thing for me was giving up a lot of socializing. Like, a lot. You know what I mean? Like, normally Memorial Day weekend, I'd be out of commission the whole weekend.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like this Memorial Day weekend, I'm going fishing Saturday and that's it.
Well, it's having like friendship FOMO. I went through that a lot in LA of like my friends would go to the beach or whatever and I would be doing red carpet that night, so I'd have to study.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why. I mean, it's true. But like...
But then they are all jealous at the end of the day when you're successful and they're...
Yeah.
And like, your friends start, as you change, like, because you change as a person. So your friends start, like, this whole idea of...
Well, my friends that, like, I know you think it's stupid to stay friends with people who you've been friends with since you were a kid.
Not everybody, but like we were talking last week, you have 15 friends. No, that was Mike Cannon. How many friends do you have?
I have a big group.
Too much.
Like, we hang out in a big group, but since, like, I've been here, it's thinned out who I spend my time with.
Right, and
like, I still love a lot of the kids, but there's a core of about 4 or 5.
We don't have anything in common anymore.
Very close with. I mean, we still have stuff in common somewhat, but that's definitely
it's faded. Right. And so
like, I have a friend who was texting me tonight being like, he's all fucked up and being like, you were way more fun when you were da-da-da. Okay.
You're right. Yeah, more fun for you, because that's what I want to be, fun for you.
It's Thursday. Go to bed.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I think that you end up, like, people who have large groups of friends for their whole life is like, it's nonsense. But you have like a couple of close friends, of course, like, and they kind of change with you, and that's fine. But I think as you kind of get older and change and stuff, you end up hanging out with different people, and like, because you find different people interesting, and you have different things in common with different people.
And it's weird how it works out, because my 3 closest friends are my 3 most successful friends.
Right, because you had something in common with them from the beginning, and if there's something that's driving you all to be close, then there is a similar personality or skill set that's going to... They're not necessarily going to go on the exact same path as you, but they're going to get it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Because they got the other stuff that you went through. So you're kind of going to, hopefully, it's like go along the same cycle. Mm-hmm. Like when women get the same periods as each other. Same deal.
Yeah.
Sharing a cycle.
I get
you know what I mean?
No.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No.
Right.
That happens, right?
All the time. 2 hours is how long it takes.
Wow.
Real quick. One conversation, and all of a sudden, boom, same time, simultaneous.
It's crazy.
It's weird. Really weird.
Yeah, Sam and I are on the same cycle now.
It happened quick, too.
It's disgusting.
Over the summer. It's true. It's true. We go shopping together when it's time for my ladies.
What?
That's what I call it, my ladies. You don't call it that?
Nope.
Ladies' time?
Time for my ladies is what I say when I'm, on the rag.
Menstruating.
That's right. Yeah. That's the word. That's the word. Yeah. Yeah, but I think that's what naturally happens with your friends is it adapts like everything else is adapting. And if your interests are changing, then of course your relationships with people should be changing.
And I think that the people who get mad at you for not going out are the people that they're not happy with what they're doing, so they want other people to be miserable with. Right.
The last thing they want is to see you succeed because they're having a good time. Well, they're not even having a good time. They're not succeeding because it's difficult.
One kid who was one of my closest friends before I ever started working here. It's funny that you brought the Maria thing. after the Maria, where we were drinking with Maria, I was on Maria's Snapchat.
Right.
And he got real shitty, and he's
and
my
let
one
me
friend
guess.
who's got nothing going.
Let me guess. You've changed, bro.
Yep.
yeah, you've changed. Let me tell you something,
You're
Adrian.
right. And you've got shit going on, dude.
Right. I've known you for however long. Your attitude and you as a person, you haven't changed at all. I haven't changed at all. Like, we're doing different things, but we're not. It's
Mindsets change.
Yeah,
who
but
you are doesn't change.
Right. Exactly. And this, like, oh, you think you're better than me? No, I don't think about you. Like, it
The
hasn't.
one person who was super shitty about it was a kid who recently just quit his job. And
Of course he did.
yeah.
Of course he did. Because it takes a lot of effort.
Misery loves company.
Yeah. It takes a lot of effort to have if you really want to have fun in life, and really having fun is not, going out to the bar, it's doing what you got to do. Like, that's fun.
I mean, it is fun what I was doing, but it's also understanding how much more valuable delayed gratification is.
That's it. Yep.
And that's one of the biggest keys that I've taken in the past couple months working with you, is understanding, like, it's like sex is an instant gratification thing.
Is it? I've never had it. Yeah, I don't know.
No?
No, not yet. Fingers
Versus-
crossed this weekend.
Versus something long term is more rewarding.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. Delayed gratification.
But also, instant gratification can be addicting.
Of course, that's what drugs are based on. It's a high.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the whole deal. Yeah, absolutely.
So that's but it's also being more conscious of that is one way where I feel like my brain has changed.
I feel like, those are the same things that we were talking about very, earlier on in the podcast of, it's like relationships or work or whatever, where, like, when you stop going out as much as you did, you also only remember the good times, and you don't remember all of the nights where, oh, wow, yeah, this bar's a bust. Let's go somewhere else. And, like, it sucks. Or, like, all your friends are just looking over your shoulder for a girl to bang or whatever it is, like, and you don't have any fun.
Looking over my shoulder? I mean,
whatever it is, like, there's so many nights of, like, that I'm sure you've gone out in the past where it was not fun.
A lot of times,
but you
those
only
nights,
remember the good ones, or you see, the Instagrams or the Snapchats of, like, the 30 seconds that were fun in your friend's night.
That's very true.
And you get mad that you're not there.
Yeah, a lot of times when I do go to bars now, a lot of the times I get there and within 30 minutes, I'm like, what am I doing?
Right.
But there are other times too where when I get together with the right
It is a
crew
lot
of
of fun,
kids
yeah.
and it's a fucking blast from top to bottom.
Yeah. Depends on the company you keep in the scenario, doesn't it?
That's right.
That's right. Well, listen, guys. Thank you all for joining us. Of course, rate, review, subscribe on iTunes to Sam Roberts Show podcast feed. That's where you're going to get a new Sam and Cathy every Monday, and you're going to get a new Sam Roberts Show every Friday. 2 great podcasts for the price of nothing. I mean, it's a pretty great deal.
$3.99.
Yeah, exactly. It's a pretty great deal. Thank you all. Thank you, Cathy and Adrian.
Thank you, boss.
Yes, of course. And, see you on Sirius XM every night, 9 p.m. Eastern. And if not then I'll see you here. We'll see you here, Cathy. Next week. Goodbye.